Wade Real Estate Group, and today we've got a very important topic to talk about, and we've got a full house, and we've got Valerie, Julio with a new hat, Jan, Rob, Bill,
Morning.
Kinga,
Hi.
and Talia. Alrighty, so, and Lisa, holding the phone.
Hold the phone.
Alrighty, so just in the last few weeks, a new contract, the new as-is contract, has come out, and the big change is around the financing contingency. So the financing contingency has always been kind of this thing that folks have maybe as agents have a little hard time sort of completely understanding and kind of getting right. So they've made it a little bit simpler, but still we have to be on the ball in terms of that. So, it only applies when the person's getting a loan. If it's a cash buyer, you don't have to worry about it. But basically, the big change, so before, it was the person, meaning the buyer, had to have the loan commitment. And the loan commitment was something from their bank that basically said they had the loan, but there could be, some exceptions, meaning they had to verify their employment or... So that's changed. Now they have to have loan approval. So they have to be actually approved. So that's a significant change. If we remember back to, I guess it's October of 2015, when the TRIN, which was the new mortgage rules, kind of came out, they switched the contract so that the default on, now what is loan approval became 45 days. They've switched it back to 30 days. So that's the default. So if you don't fill in the blank with something different, it's 30 days that your buyer has to have loan approval. If you fill in something different, then that's certainly fine. So again, you want to be speaking to the lender. You don't want to be saying somebody's going to be approved in 30 days and then the lender can't deliver, right? So when you're putting in that offer, you need to call the lender and say, look, can you get this done in 30? I mean, you want to do it in 30 days. It makes your offer stronger because on the seller side, they just want to make sure the person can close. When it's 45 days, typically then they're not going to know for 45 days, and if it falls apart, it's taken longer. So 30 days is actually a stronger offer. Pretty much every lender now, other than the big banks, can deliver in 30 days. So, and that's for FHA, VA, and conventional. So if you have a lender that's telling you it's longer, give me a call. I can send you a couple recommendations of somebody that can get it done, 30 days or less. The other thing now is there's a little bit more scrutiny in terms of what, so it said the buyer makes diligent effort to get the loan. So there's a little bit more in terms of what exactly that means. So, when the lender asks, they have to deliver. They can't be sort of like not sending in their stuff because that wouldn't be considered, diligent effort, and then, they might be forfeiting their deposit because of that. But here's really the meat. So now you have to explicitly notify the seller or the seller's agent that your client has gotten approval or not. Now you can still ask for an extension. If you're still sort of unsure, you can ask for it to be extended, but you got to do that. But if not, so you have to notify them in writing that you've either gotten the loan or you've been denied, or you've already gotten the extension. So then that notification kind of would be pushed out. So that's very, very important, and here's why. So if you forget to notify them, the seller has 3 days after that date, right? So you've
gotten the loan.
You've gotten the loan, right? And your client's gotten the loan, and you're happy, right? But then you fell asleep or whatever, and you didn't notify the seller or the seller's agent that you got that loan in writing. That seller has 3 days. They can cancel you. They can terminate you. Wow, right, wow, wouldn't that be terrible? Your client got the loan, and again, and then if that 3 days goes by, then that evaporates. So, but again, so think of it now, you got Phil, he's the listing agent, right? And basically, I got myself a backup cash offer higher, than the offer my client, and then I'm waiting 3 days go by, I'm like, client, look, here's what we can do. We can terminate them, and we can take that cash offer, and you'll get more. And guess what? I'm terminating them. So that's a huge change, and something that, you know, it can be potentially very, very problematic.
What happens to the escrow? Can the
I would
seller
imagine they
pull
would
out?
get, right, I would imagine they would get their escrow back at that point.
It could be debatable, though. I mean, that could, right? Nobody notified.
I don't know, I mean, it could be debatable. I'm gonna give the legal hotline a call on that, you know, on Monday. You know, yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it probably would go back, but, you know, you don't know. I mean, again, I believe if you've terminated them, it's gotta go back. That's kind of what I'm assuming. That kind of makes sense to me. I'll double check that. If you don't notify them, right, and then that you're canceling, and then your buyer doesn't close because they didn't get the loan, the deposit's gone. So it's much, much more kind of on the buyer's agent now. It's much more explicit kind of how that all works. And really the big risk is just that point that, you know, they weren't notified, they got the loan. I mean, you're gonna have, I mean, that's probably, you know, that's a potential lawsuit waiting to happen. So you'd have a very, very unhappy client because they got the loan, and then you know, the agent messed up basically and didn't notify, and you know, that seller had a smart agent, you know, that has watched this training and kind of right, and kind of knows that, and basically was waiting. I mean, it's a little less likely now to happen because, you know, but remember when it was like active with contract, and you know, people would still go and they're submitting backup. You know, I mean, it's possible that somebody, you know, got a higher offer. I mean, you could even, you know, now think about it. I mean, you know, you could put a backup offer in that you know might be better, and you know, now maybe you have a better shot of actually, you know, getting the transaction because, you know, whoever that buyer's agent was, you know, kind of missed it. So it's something really to key in on. So, Bill?
Does the notification have to come specifically from us as the buyer's agent, or if the lender emails both myself and the listing agent, that counts as being notified in writing?
Yeah. I
of the
mean,
approval?
I'm not 100% sure on that, but I would think that would work. But again, like I really, I don't really think you can be depending on the lender. I mean, it's really your responsibility as the agent. I mean, you know, and again, it's just really, you know, we've talked about the financing contingency many times. You know, it's one of the most important things as a buyer's agent that you're on top of. And now it's just much more explicit in terms of, you know, kind of what it means. It also speaks to, you know, using a lender that you know can deliver, right? And a lot of times, Lisa.
Juan did have that happen, by the way.
What's that?
He canceled a contract and took a backup cash offer, so it has already happened.
Right. Now, were they able to get the loan, or? Well, hey, Juan, were you able to get? Was the buyer able to get the loan in that case, or they were going to be denied?
Yes.
Yeah. So he kicked them out basically. So you know, smart, savvy agent, and basically, you know, that whoever that buyer's agent was is probably having a very bad day. So it's just, you know. So, I mean, again, it's new. We just, I mean, and go back on your contracts that you have out there, and see, you know, because you'll notice the date. It'll be for 2017. So if that's the contract that you've got out there with that buyer, you want to double check that, because that rule is now, I mean, that's what's in there, and that's what's in effect. So all your outstanding, there's going to be an email coming from me to everybody where they're going to have to explicitly kind of reply back that they get this, they understand this, and you know, and then just have have a sticky note on your computer, key date spreadsheet, whatever you're using to kind of stay on top of, you know. But it's gotten even more important.
What about the 7 days?
The 7 days is no longer. That's out. So there is no more. So before, it used to be the shorter of and it was the loan commitment, right, which has now been changed to loan approval. So it was the shorter of whatever was in there, and it used to be the default was 45 days, so most everybody left that blank, or 7 days before closing. They had to have the loan commitment. Now, that 7 days is no longer, so it's basically, just that one line, and now it says instead of loan commitment, it says loan approval. So, and again, this is a discussion you'd have with your buyer, right? Here's where we are, right? We are, tomorrow is the day. Your file is not completely underwritten, right? What do you want to do? I can try to get you an extension, and you want to be working on that a day or so before, to extend that period out. If the seller's telling you no, like they're not going to give you that extension, then the buyer has two choices. They can basically put their deposit at risk, which maybe what they're so confident. Again, you're talking to the lender. What do they think, Lisa?
Can this date then be like 3 days, 2 days, even 1 day before closing?
Yep.
Because it's basically a clear to close is what you need.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you don't technically need it. I mean, say the person's employment hasn't been verified, right? Then that's like the last thing they do in the underwriting. So, yeah, you don't have the clear to close, but that's the only qualification, that needs to be fulfilled. So, we all would say, okay, that they're still working, we're good there.
Conditional approval.
It has a condition, exactly. So the approval has that condition, and again, this is nothing, like, we're not doing any of this stuff unilaterally, like, by ourselves. We're talking to the client, and we're asking them, what do they want to do? So it's all, but we have to be, like, if we're not asking them, then we fell asleep. So we don't want to do that. So that's unacceptable. So I think, I mean, basically you want to know they're approved, and obviously if they have the clear to close, that's better, right? Because then there's no issue. So again, working with a good lender will help here in a big way. In a lot of control the process, right? Control it as, your client is going with, we'll pick on Bank of America. They're going with Bank of America. Okay, Phil is 0 for 8 with Bank of America. Eight transactions where they were the lender, and this is over up north here. 0 for 8. 0 for 8. Delivered not one time, on time. Now, if my client has a pre-approval with them and they are going with them, I'm having a very serious discussion with them that, like, maybe you want to reconsider who you're going to get this loan from. Because, we're going to get to the end, and there's a very, very high probability that they're not going to be done because we're 0 for 8. And everybody I've talked to, I've never heard, and everybody has the same thing with them. And it's all the big banks. They don't, they just approach it differently. They approach it, and they're big, and there's departments, and sometimes the files sit there, and if they're busy, they don't hire extra people. They just kind of make people wait. So, again, it's not our call. Like, you can't obviously force the person to use somebody that is going to deliver, but you would strongly suggest it and explain to them, what sort of the ramifications are if in fact they end up going that way. Awesome. Any questions? Everybody's good? Any questions in Periscope land? Alrighty, if anybody has any questions offline, I'm certainly happy to answer them, and we'll be back next week with another, I don't know if we can beat this topic, but hopefully something equally as interesting. Thank you.